Good morning, boys and girls. I'm Eleanor Hawkins, and welcome to Telestory Time. You know, Valentine's Day is one of my very favorite days of the year, and today we're celebrating it. And I want to read you the story, Valentine's Day. It is cold February day, but Mary is warm and cozy in her room. There is an important sign on her door, private, do not enter. Mary is making valentines. In the bottom of her valentine box is a picture of a little boy with no teeth in front. Oh, it is a funny picture, and it is for Mary's special friend Peter, who lives next door. Mary pasted on a big red heart and prints, "Guess who?" on the back. On Valentine's Day, Mary is up early. She slips Mother's and Daddy's valentine under their pillows while they sleep, and then she dresses and goes out. She tucks valentines under all her friends' front doors. She rings their doorbells and then runs away fast. Peter opens his door so quickly he almost catches Mary, but she hides behind a bush. When Mary gets home, Mother and Daddy say, "Some fairy brought us lovely valentines." Oh, here comes Peter. Mary sees him from the window. He leaves a heart-shaped box by Mary's door and races off. The box is filled with tiny candy hearts. "Oh," says Mary, sucking one of the candy hearts, "this is my very best surprise of all." And that is the story entitled Valentine's Day. And now I'm going to read you the story in this book of Humpty Dumpty Holiday Stories. And the name of the story is The Tasty Pasty Valentines. Little Gray Mouse looked around his cozy little home. "Oh, I am the lucky one," he thought. Oh, now he was lucky. His little hole in the wall was just right. The house he lived in was just right, too. People lived in the house, of course, a mother and a father, a boy and a girl. But Gray Mouse did not mind that. "Oh, they are nice, quiet people," Mouse told his friends. "They don't give me much trouble." And they did have a fine kitchen. A fella could always pick up a little snack at bedtime. Little Gray Mouse lived in a hole in the wall of the boy's room. Now, that was lucky, too, for the boy left such good crumbs, cake crumbs, bread crumbs with peanut butter. Yum. But sometimes the boy would stay in his room right in Gray Mouse's way. Now that was the trouble right now. Mouse wanted to go down to the kitchen. He wanted to go very, very much, for he could smell cheese, lovely, lovely cheese. But the boy was in the room, so was the girl. They were sitting at a table working. Why don't they go out to play? Little Gray Mouse thought crossly. But the boy and girl went on working. They had red paper and white paste and scissors. Snip, snip, they cut up the red paper. Swoosh, swoosh, they put paste on the red paper, here and there. "Oh dear," said the girl, "something's wrong. The ones I make look funny." "Well, mine look kind of funny too," said the boy. "I can't make them look right." The girl looked as if she wanted to cry. "Oh dear," she said, "I especially wanted them to look pretty." "Well, let's get them done anyway," said the boy. "Then we can go out and play." Yes, indeed, thought Little Gray Mouse. Do get done. Do go away. How he did want to get some of that cheese. At last the boy and girl stood up. They put the red papers on the floor. "Oh, I do wish they looked better," said the girl. "Come on," said the boy. They'll dry soon. Maybe they will look better then." And they ran out to play. Now Little Gray Mouse popped out of his hole. He was about to scamper down to the kitchen when suddenly he stopped. Sniff, sniff. Oh, what a wonderful smell. Sniff, sniff. Why, it came from the red papers on the floor. Oh, it was the wonderful smell of white paste. Little Gray Mouse ran to the red papers and began to nibble at them. Nibble, nibble, nibble. Oh, delicious. He nibbled all around the red papers, in and out, around and around. Nibble, nibble he went, wherever there was that wonderful taste of paste. "Best meal I've had around here in a long time," he said happily. Soon he was so full that he did not even go down to the kitchen. Instead, he went back to his cozy little mouse house for a good after-nibble nap. Little Gray Mouse was still sleeping when the boy and girl returned. They ran into the room, and then they stopped in astonishment. "Look at our valentines," cried the boy. "Why, they're beautiful," cried the girl. She jumped up and down and clapped her hands. "I wonder who did this for us?" asked the boy. "They look as if they've been nibbled." Nibbled? Oh, the boy and girl laughed at each other and laughed again. "I know who it was," said the boy. "So do I," said the girl. "And we must say thank you." Soon after that, Little Gray Mouse woke up after his nap. Something wonderful woke him in the middle of a dream. Sniff, sniff. He had never smelled anything so good before, and it came from the boy's room. Gray Mouse ran out of his hole as fast as he could. "Well, what's this?" said the mouse in surprise. There in the middle of the room was some red paper. There in the middle of the red paper was a piece of cheese, and there on the cheese was some paste. There were words on the red paper. They said, "Be our Valentine." But Little Gray Mouse didn't care about words. Cheese and paste? It's not often that you can eat cheese and paste at the same time. "Oh, what a day," he said happily. "Oh, what a lovely, lovely day." And you know, the Valentines were a big thank you that he had made for the boy and the girl. And that is the story of the pasty, tasty Valentines. And now, boys and girls, stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a moment to show you some very old Valentines. Please stay tuned. And now, boys and girls, I'm going to read from this Valentine book card, and it's the legend of Saint Valentine. The 14th of February celebrates the feast of a holy man named Valentine, who was a Christian priest. He shared his faith with others in the pagan land of Rome until the day a group of soldiers took him from his home. He was jailed and put to death at the pagan king's command. For performing Christian marriages the king had ordered banned. But before he died, he wrote to each young couple he had wed, "Grieve not for me, instead rejoice that you are man and wife, for love's a priceless treasure that's more precious still than life." And since then, Valentines are sent upon that day each year as a sign of love and caring to the one whom you hold dear. And that is the legend of Saint Valentine. And now, boys and girls, I want to share with you some of the Valentines that I've collected through the years. And this is one of my very special ones. It was sent to me by a little boy viewer on Telestory Time, and he had carved out of a piece of wood a book with the pages and all. And on the front it says, "Be My Valentine." A beautiful little book. And on the spine of the book, "To My Valentine." A beautiful treasure I've kept for many years. And then from another fan, I received this darling card. It's not an ice cream cone. It's not a Valentine. It's just a bit of fan mail for a favorite friend of mine. That is a very, very clever card that was sent to me by a fan. And now, boys and girls, I want to show you some of my very old Valentines. This one is a special one that was published on a postcard back in the late 1800s. And you can see here a little girl is reading a book to the little boy standing behind her, and it says, "Love's Greeting." There you can see a good picture of it. And then I brought along this one, which is a foreign card that was published way back in the 1800s. And here you see we have a book. Beautiful Valentine. And then one of the first Valentines I ever received as a little girl was this. And it says, "To My Valentine." And you can see the little girl dressed up with her hair ribbon and all. And this is a very old Valentine of mine. And boys and girls, you know, Valentines have changed all during the years, but for years they had lace and ribbons and beautiful lace and flowers. And this is a little later one that has the glitter, but it says, "Happy Valentine's Day." And then we have an old-fashioned wish. And here we see, "An old-fashioned wish is always in style when it comes from the heart and is sent with a smile. Happy Valentine's Day." And then we have the birds and the flowers, like all the old cards had, thinking of you on Valentine's Day. And then I have a couple of special ones here that I have right over here in another stack. And this is one from my very dear friend Mary Olive Jones in Fairmont, West Virginia, and she did this Sarensnita, that's paper cutting, and she made the heart, and inside she has, "To Eleanor and Carol, greetings and love, sweet love, Mary Olive." And that was back in 2003. And Mary Olive has some of her work down in Washington, D.C. at the Smithsonian. I'm very proud of that. And then my very favorite card is from my husband, Carol. And you can see that it is really all lace of flowers and birds, and it's laser cut. But this is my favorite Valentine that Carol has sent me all during the years. And then this one is "With Love." And when we open it, because if you listen very closely, "Let Me Call You Sweetheart" plays all through in this special card. With love. Boys and girls, it's lots of fun to save your Valentines, as I've done through the years, and enjoy them each year. All kinds, flowers, lace, and always it says, "Be My Valentine." Boys and girls, we'll be back with another Valentine story in just a moment. Please stay tuned. And now, boys and girls, get very carefully. I'm going to read you my very favorite fairy tale. Yes, it is the story of Cinderella. Once there was a girl who was as good as she was beautiful. She lived with her stepmother and her two stepsisters. Oh, they were cruel to her because she was more beautiful than they. They made her scrub and clean all day long and gave her only rags to wear. At night she slept in the chimney corner. Because she was always covered with ashes, they called her Cinder Wench or Cinderella. One day the king's son announced that he was going to give a ball. Cinderella's two stepsisters were invited. Oh, they began to choose silks and laces for their ball gowns and jewels and feathers for their hair. They talked of nothing else but how fine they would look at the palace ball. "Oh, you can fix our hair for us," they said to Cinderella. Oh, she fixed their hair in different ways and did her best to make them look beautiful. But no matter how hard she tried, Cinderella still looked more beautiful than they, even in her rags. This made the stepsisters angry. "Why don't you go to the ball too, Cinderella?" they asked. The poor girl looked down at her rags and said, "Oh, how I wish I could go." And then they laughed at her and said, "Imagine a cinder wench at the prince's ball." With tears in her eyes, Cinderella watched her stepsisters get into their coach and depart for the ball. Just the same, "I wish I could go," she whispered to herself. At that very moment she heard a voice behind her saying, "And so you shall, my child." Cinderella turned around, and there stood a lovely lady with a crown on her head. "I am your fairy godmother," she said, "and I shall prepare you for the prince's ball. Now first, run into the garden and get me the biggest pumpkin you can find." Cinderella ran into the garden and brought back the pumpkin. The fairy waved her wand over the pumpkin, and it was changed instantly into a splendid red coach with golden trimmings. "Now we need 6 horses," said the fairy godmother. "Run and fetch the mousetrap." Cinderella brought the mousetrap. There were 6 lively little mice in the trap. The fairy waved her wand, and the mice became 6 prancing white horses with tassels on their heads. "Now we need a coachman," said the fairy. "Bring the rat trap." Cinderella brought the rat trap with one big rat sitting in it. The fairy waved her wand, and the rat became a coachman with a coachman's hat and a plume on his head. He jumped up on the coach and took the reins in his hands. "Now we need footmen too," said the fairy. "I think 6 will do. Run and fetch 6 green lizards." Cinderella brought the lizards. The fairy waved her wand, and immediately there were 6 footmen dressed in purple livery trimmed with gold. "There," said the fairy. "Are you happy now?" Oh, but my clothes," said Cinderella, looking down at her rags. The fairy godmother laughed gently and touched Cinderella with her wand. Cinderella's rags fell off, and she was dressed in a magnificent ball gown of golden silk. Oh, there were diamonds in her hair, and on her feet twinkled 2 lovely little glass slippers. "And now off to the ball," said the fairy. "But you must remember that the magic ends at midnight. You must be home at 12 o'clock, or you will find yourself again in rags." Oh, Cinderella promised to be back at midnight, and she rode off to the ball. Now, when Cinderella arrived at the ball, everyone whispered, "What a beautiful princess! I wonder who she is." Even the stepsisters did not recognize Cinderella, but they were very envious. "The prince dances with no one but her," they said to each other. Indeed, Cinderella and the prince were the handsomest couple on the dance floor. and the prince never left Cinderella's side. When supper was served, he picked out the choicest fruits and cakes for her. He took Cinderella by the hand and led her to the king and queen and told them that he loved her. Oh, Cinderella was so happy that she quite forgot about the time. Suddenly, she heard the clock strike the first note of 12 midnight. Quickly, she curtsied to the prince and then fled from the room and out of the castle. She hurried down the marble steps to her coach. Just as she was about to step into the coach, the last note of 12 sounded. The coach vanished before her eyes, and there on the ground lay a pumpkin. The rat and mice scurried off, and the lizards crawled away in the dust. Cinderella stood there dressed in her rags again. The lovely little glass slippers were all that remained, but Cinderella had lost one of the slippers on the marble steps when she hurried down. She limped home on the other slipper and reached the chimney corner before her stepsisters returned. Now, the next morning, everyone was awakened by the sound of a bugle. A messenger from the palace called out the news that the prince had found a glass slipper. He was going to take it to every house in the kingdom until he found its owner. When he found the girl, she would become his bride. All the ladies in the kingdom were excited. They hurried to put on their best dresses for the prince's visit. But Cinderella had nothing to wear but her rags. The prince went to every house looking for the beautiful girl. At last he came to Cinderella's house. Cinderella's stepsister pushed her aside in their hurry to try on the slipper. "Oh, I think it will fit me," said the older girl, and she could not even squeeze her toes into the tiny slipper. The young stepsister had no better luck when she tried the slipper on. "Oh, please let me try," said Cinderella in a shy little voice. "You," cried the stepsisters, "go back to your cinders and ashes where you belong." But the prince looked at her a long time at Cinderella's lovely face. He just knew he had seen it before. "Let her try," said the prince. Cinderella slipped her foot into the glass slipper easily, and then to everyone's amazement, she drew the other slipper out of her pocket and put it on her other foot. At that moment, the fairy godmother appeared, and with her wand touched Cinderella. There she stood, dressed again in the splendid ball gown. The prince gazed at her with joy and then knelt down at her feet. And then he said, "This is my own true bride." A great wedding feast was held. Cinderella was so happy that she forgave her stepsisters, but she took them to live with her at the palace, where they married 2 lords. And you know the end of the story. Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after. And that is our story of Cinderella. Boys and girls, I hope that you will plan to visit your public library sometime during this week and check out some very good Valentine stories. And go to any of the libraries in the Craven, Pamlico, Carteret Regional Library System. check out a very good book on your very own library card. And now, boys and girls, I have a little poem to read from this booklet. And it's entitled Valentine Castle. There's an old castle where once lived a king. Fairies now live there, and birds nest and sing. And once every year on Valentine's Day, there's hustle and bustle for magic holds sway. Yes, Cupid is busy. He knows from the start, wherever he aims, love springs from the heart. There's ribbon and lace, sweet verses galore. Put them together, they're off to your door. The castle resounds with sentiments old. Sweeter they grow, more often retold. Bluebirds and fairies, forget-me-nots too. Sing it and say it, I love you, I do. The castle is yours, forever and aye. What could be sweeter than Valentine's Day? And now I see I have time enough for a fairy valentine. Once upon a story time, in a hidden place, a fairy made a valentine of dainty Queen Anne's lace. She ruffled it and gathered it in graceful little darts, and trimmed it oh so lavishly with tiny bleeding hearts. The message on the valentine was filled with tender thoughts, and it was tied with ribbon grass and blue forget-me-nots. Red tulips sealed with a kiss, and then without delay, the fairy called a white-winged dove to carry it away. Those are two special poems that we have in this little booklet, and I see that how many Valentines are going to loved one on this day? How many folks show their affection in this sweet old-fashioned way? And the world is better for it. Love expressed is love and grows. In the giver and the loved one lights a flame that warms and glows. That is why, on this occasion, you're as sure as you can be, you'll always get a Valentine signed with love from me. And boys and girls, now we close our book of stories on Valentine's, and we hope that you have a very happy Valentine's from Telestory Time. Until next week, bye-bye and happy Valentine's Day.